But it's time to go back to the March 28th Ruthless Pro Wrestling event. And where are we in the status of this? Well, today, what a cliffhanger at the end of today's WrestleMania Daily Show. That was not performative, okay? Literally, email came as we were signing off, and then I had to dive into my records request, which the Berwyn Police Department did deliver, as they had stated they would, by April 13th, and in fact, they came through. And so I went through the incident report, and the Criminal Investigations Unit of the Berwyn Police Department, they investigated the issue. Now, it's not outright stated that my records request prompted this, but it might have. I can't say that definitively, but certainly they went off of the Cultaholic story that had come out the day after. And of course, the Cultaholic story featured comments on the record by Mickey Knuckles and Lou Nixon, both who were wrestlers on the show. If you recall that article, you had Lou Nixon stating that that Cruel had been stabbed and realized after the fact. Mickey Knuckles was even more specific, describing the incident that it was after the main event. After the show, Cruel, Schlack, and Lou Nixon were out at their gimmick table selling merch. And this fan came up and was just staring down Cruel. And so Cruel just stared right back at him. Next thing you know, the fan tackled Cruel through the table. And while he had him on the ground, he stabbed him in the lower right quadrant of his abdomen. At that point, the boys saw he had a knife, so they just started lighting him up. They didn't want to take the chance of the motherfucker stabbing them too. They pushed him towards the door. Somebody Spartan kicked him down the stairs. Yeah, that was quite the account from Mickey Knuckles.
So just in hearing this, we should say from the angles that we've been able to see, what is true and what is not true. Okay, at least like what could be perceived as true. There was an interaction at the merch table. The fan did come up and was, yes, I guess you could say, was staring down Cruel. They did have that interaction. Cruel stared right back at him.
And we can't hear what is being said. It did not seem as though he was being, like, it looked like he was getting in the guy's face. But I'm reading body language here. It did not seem like this fan was like in attack mode.
Yeah. What Mickey Knuckles either didn't know or failed to mention in her account was that Cruel threw the first punch. It was very clearly seen.
Yes.
Instead, in her account, she says, next thing you know, the fan tackled Cruel through the table. That only came as a result of the scuffle that began after Cruel threw that first punch.
Yeah.
And then she says, while he had him on the ground, he stabbed him in the lower right quadrant of his abdomen. That is certainly something that we could not see in the evidence. That is something that Gregory Iron, who happened to be present in that incident, claims that he did not see either.
And I'm not going to parse between them, but Lou Nixon is the one who put up this video the next day. He's going through it. I saw some of his streams as well. He's literally like freeze framing and trying to point. Nixon is not, from what I've heard, and maybe he has done more stuff, I don't believe he ever said he saw the stabbing, whereas Mickey Knuckles is like directly stating what, I mean, I feel very confident saying did not happen. She's describing something that just did not happen.
Now,
I think
is she telling a story that somebody told her? Maybe that might be her defense for it, but she's stating this as fact to a cultaholic, and this is what began this story, really,
right?
Among the plus also the Lou Nixon account.
Yeah, and the cultaholic story, which it came out the very next day, it did feature that anonymous source in the article that was stating like there was no knife here. He thought that they just went after a fan, and this was a cover story. So that was in the initial cultaholic story. You had so the accounts from Lou Nixon, Mickey Knuckles. We have heard this anonymous source. We fast forward. Gregory Iron is one of the first as well to state on the record the fact that he was there at one of the merchandise tables, did not see a knife, and in the whole mix-up, the whole brawl, which that was the first video we saw of this fan being ejected out and being waylaid by everybody, and him stating not only did he not see a knife, but in the aftermath, while everyone's there, nobody's talking about like there was a knife, that there was a stabbing, like no mention of that at all. Sunday, the day after the show, Gregory Iron is online and reading about this and is perplexed that this is the story that's out because he was right there. And if a near stabbing had occurred, you would think like that would have been the topic of conversation after this fan was thrown out of the building. The very next day, Cruel works a show for Premier Wrestling Federation, which was the show that Joey Janela and Steve Corino were on together. And then the following weekend, Cruel did do a GCW show. And I put that in there because Brett Lauderdale is he's obviously getting information about this and is kind of staying out of things until the Berwyn Eagles Club is now facing the non-ability to host wrestling shows anymore. And GCW had a date there in June that now they have to find a new location. So he's upset and goes online and calls this a fake stabbing, giving what he has been told as well. So we're well into this now, where I think largely the sentiment was there is no evidence of a stabbing here. So someone needs to present some evidence here. Cruel during all this time, and maybe this was wise on his part. I think he could have clarified things, but he might have been, when the police were involved, maybe he was thinking, I'm just going to keep quiet. All he said the next day was, when Effie had tweeted something about this, he just said, Cruel is fine. So, I mean, the guy never claimed publicly that he was stabbed. But he also did not shut down the discussion because his tweet led to people just assuming that this stabbing was true. And he did not.
I will say, in one of Lou Nixon's videos, he did shoot something in the back after the scuffle, where I'm guessing they were celebrating after the event. And he said, Lou Nixon, with Cruel in the background, unmasked, said something to the effect of, he was just stabbed. And Cruel just kind of like, I guess acknowledged and agreed with it. So that was about as far as I've seen maybe out of him.
I mean, I don't know what advice he was getting. I certainly made multiple attempts to speak to Cruel, and he did not respond. So today we get this record. Are there any other details we're leaving out before we get to the police report?
Lou Nixon happened to really want to drive home the idea that the person involved in this alleged stabbing was from this Facebook group called Deathmatch Elite 2.0. And that seemed, at least to me, like not really founded on anything, not really based on a whole lot other than maybe his own sort of beliefs about this particular Facebook group of deathmatch wrestling fans. So I feel like that has this person didn't even seem to be active in that group altogether, but that was just kind of one other thing that I think confused the whole story early on.
Now, we don't have video of this, but we have had enough corroborating evidence that this guy was at worst, he was heckling, he was getting involved in the show, he was bothering the performers, appeared he was intoxicated at this event. So, I mean, this seemed to have been this guy had been a problem at this show. And so in the police report, what we have here is this detective that reached out, and while their names are redacted, it's very clear he spoke to Cruel, who was at the airport on his way home, and spoke to a manager. They do not name who the manager is, and
the manager of Ruthless Pro Wrestling.
Of Ruthless. Yeah. So, and to complicate this was the last show under the former management before Ricky Shane Page, Schlack, and Dredd took over Ruthless Pro Wrestling. So I don't know that this was Chris Kohlenberg that is the manager, but he was the outgoing promoter for Ruthless Pro Wrestling, and this was their final event under that ownership as well. So what a way to go out here. So the unnamed manager states that this is from the police report, was causing problems earlier in the night, was intoxicated, and warned by management to calm down or he would be removed. The fan agreed to calm down, but approached Cruel after the show and caused more issues. The manager states that the fan ended up attacking the wrestler and tackled him to the ground. The fan continued to punch the wrestler several times. Then the rest of the wrestlers and employees came in to help and got the fan off of him and escorted him out of the building. So that's what's in the police report. And that does differ from the video clip that we have seen, that this police report omits the fact that it is not the fan that is the aggressor here. He is not the one to start throwing punches. It is Cruel that does throw the first set of punches that starts this. And then we see the video of everyone swarming this fan and ejecting him out of the building.
Right.
It goes on here that the manager did.
So are you suggesting the police got this wrong, or that they're just getting an account that is inaccurate?
They're getting the account from the manager, but it is clearly not including, like, I don't think that they saw this clip, because I think like that would contradict this, or at least that is not, again, this is from the manager's account. Okay. That is what they are stating. And I don't know what this manager's vantage point of the whole incident was, where they were physically located. But this is embedded in our story, and this is as clear an account of what we see here. I mean, there is no, this guy, he is, he's putting his finger up towards one of the people here, and Cruel just starts throwing. We don't know what is being said here. Like, we can't hear what is being said. But that leads to the tackling by the other set of merchandise tables, and that's when all of this kind of escalates. So the wrestler was contacted at the airport, and he stated that some guy was causing problems all night, came up to him at the end of the night and struck him several times, and then tackled him to the ground. His peers then got the fan off of him and took matters into their own hands. And the Berwyn Police Department is closing this case. They conclude there was no stabbing that occurred here, and the manager stated that, and that Cruel does not want to pursue any criminal. He is not looking to press charges or move this forward, so they're considering this case closed at this time.
Interesting. So, of course, no update from. Well, do we know if the fan was questioned?
Not that is listed here. I mean, and it does state in this the fact that there were police there, and that still leaves me with questions here of
hold on. Who? But is this all from the manager, or do the police actually? It's from.
Okay, you're right.
This is all the promoter's account, or sorry, the manager of Ruthless Pro Wrestling's account of the event.
The manager says he observed 2 or 3 police officers there, and assumed because he saw these police officers there, they didn't need to call 911. Gregory Irons had said he saw someone there who was either security or a police officer and didn't know which designation that person was, but singular person. This manager is saying 2 or 3 police officers were there. So we go with let's assume that there are police officers there. Forget there's no stabbing. Just what you're seeing on this video of this fan getting attacked by all of these people. It does beg the question of how these police officers were not intervening, and at the very least, some kind of check on this fan who is intoxicated, possibly concussed, and then he is thrown out of this building as well. I mean, just the status of this fan is still a question here, or just how this scene goes down, and there's allegedly police officers on site.
Something tells me there's still going to be more about this. I mean, I
still have questions about this. Certainly.
I do feel like, though, given that I have to assume the police at least, I would hope, sort of like looked into the possibility of there being a stabbing. And that part at least maybe feels somewhat conclusive. The fact that like nothing has really come out of the fact that there may have been a stabbing. So, but beyond that, I think there's still a bit more to uncover out of all this. But nonetheless, there have already been massive ramifications, both to the Berwyn Eagles Club and now I would suggest to Cruel as well.
Yeah, I think so. We don't know for certain why Cruel was removed from the Fight Club show from Game Changer, but it does coincide with, Brett Lauderdale becoming much more public about this incident over the last couple of days. And then Cruel, who did work for Game Changer last weekend, is now off the Fight Club show. And that was a big match they were promoting for that Fight Club show. Like, that was the big match with him and Slade. And they have now inserted Dr. Redacted into that one as well. So I don't know if this is the end of this story. I would personally like to hear from this fan as well. There are questions here of, somebody that I think made some poor judgment here with the way in which he went about things at the show.
Yep.
But I'm sorry, but getting drunk and heckling fans, like we heard nothing about like this guy was being like racist or homophobic or putting his hands on wrestlers. It sounded like he was being a disturbance and was at least told by management. He was warned if he doesn't stop, he's going to be ejected out of the building, and he was not ejected out of the building. But at the same time, it's really hard to watch this, and like this guy has been, he was attacked. He was accused of a stabbing that all indications are he absolutely did not commit that as well. So there are still questions that are attached to this, but I think it at least answers one of the significant ones about the possible stabbing and why they opted to go with that story as a cover that sounded way worse and might eliminate pro wrestling permanently at the Berwyn Eagle Club, which is like for independent groups, like you're not going to find too many venues that have a 22-year history of promoting shows, especially in a place like Berwyn, for instance, where there's probably not a ton of alternative options. I mean, Game Changer is taking this show from Berwyn and they're moving that show to another state. It's not like you just have another place down the street in Berwyn that you can just move everybody to as well. Like this has a long history of hosting professional wrestling, and you can see the reaction from like talent, from promoters, that this really was something that was really ill thought of in terms of not just the incident that occurred, but then the story that followed it that seemed to be the real straw that broke the camel's back here, of the idea of this stabbing, that now this venue may not be an option anymore for independent promotions.
Yeah, and I'm just showing there is a GoFundMe for support for the Berwyn Eagles Club. They have a goal of 3,000. It's currently at 1,210. So that is just maybe the latest update on that. I do hope there is some level of accountability here. I mean, obviously, no charges at present are being filed against anybody, but we need to hear from the defense potentially of the people who claimed this story being something other than what the police have discovered here.
Yeah, I think so too. Like for the ones that were like very adamant about this, I mean, the police report is saying the opposite.
For Ruthless Pro Wrestling, and yes, maybe rather unfortunate that the timing of this transition took place like at such time, but I do think somebody like a Ricky Shane Page, somebody like Schlack, who was actually involved in the beatdown after the fact, I think they need to take accountability for it. This is the company that they now run that I would argue has the stench of this fake stabbing attached to it. So how will they answer for it? And I mean, the little we got from Ricky Shane Page in that Boulevard Police podcast that Neil and I discussed on Friday was not at all, I think, the type of, response of basically like, I don't know, maybe there was a stabbing, maybe there wasn't. Like, that is not at all, I think, the type of response you would want for somebody running a company.
Yeah, I think it left a lot to be desired. Like, I listened to that as somebody that does not want to make a claim that is getting disproven more and more as the days go by of lying about this, but also didn't address it in any kind of meaningful way. There was no, hey, you're safe coming to a Ruthless Pro Wrestling show. There was no, if you were looking for accountability, you were not getting it in that interview. And I don't know if they will address it any further. It seems like this was I just think it was a really poorly thought out, or just, I don't know. I can't get into their heads about how this, the idea that this snowballed into where we are 2 weeks later is insane.
Yeah, before the Cultaholic story, I mean, and even after the Cultaholic story, it wasn't like this was getting that much discussion. And I wonder even how much discussion it's necessarily getting right now. Obviously, because it's turned into this Berwyn Eagles thing and everything, it's become a much bigger story. But
wait, I can't tell you how many stories we have written about this at this point over 2 weeks. Like,
I find it wildly fascinating. Like I said, I think there's like a Netflix doc. And
I mean, I'm really like curious about all of this, and it just seems like we've had people like connected to all of these people that have reached out to us. Like it goes at the core level here. It's almost like this idea that we'll just put out this story as like a justification for this attack on this fan. And it was like, this isn't 1994. And the idea that it just showed like how fast did all these different clips come out. And it like that told the story. Like, could you imagine us breaking down this and we would have no video to support this? It's just going off the words of these wrestlers, and there will be contradictory things back and forth. Like the video is so crucial to all of this because it cuts through anyone's narrative of what occurred. And this would not be a story that we'd be able to break down in any kind of specificity without.
Yeah. Maybe some reaction, maybe we could discuss here. Ricky Shane Page, read into this what you will, but what his comment at 2:00 during today says on X, would you trust someone who works who owns a McDonald's to tell you what happened in the kitchen at a Wendy's? Which I am taking to inverse to maybe Brett Lauderdale.
That's how I read
McDonald's in this case. So
I don't know. Well, was there surveillance footage in the Wendy's kitchen? Because I would trust that even if I work at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Okay. It is WrestleMania month at postwrestling.com. Wei Ting and John Pollock go live all WrestleMania week beginning Monday, April the 13th. Sign up for the Post Wrestling Cafe and you will get live shows all week long leading into our coverage that weekend of WrestleMania 42. This month, we're also bringing you reviews of Spring Break 2 from New Orleans in 2018 and a special Patrons Pick edition of Rewind Away. Sign up now at postwrestlingcafe.com, and this month, new subscribers get 50% off for the first month. Head on over to postwrestlingcafe.com.